Today, we're going to go over Blueshift Protect, our application Allowlisting program. We'll go over what it is, how it functions, how it's deployed, and why it will help organizations boost their defensive cybersecurity posture. So we'll kind of jump right into this. Kind of overview about what Blueshift Protect is. It is an application Allowlisting software, so it only allows known good applications to run. So a little different methodology than the kind of default accept all and then let everything run and try to figure out what's bad. Our software assumes everything is bad and only allows what we have told it that it's good to run. So, it's a layered security solution. So it works well with your traditional antiviruses, your EDRs, your XDRs, your firewalls. It can be an antivirus replacement. It can replace traditional antivirus. It does a good job of that. Versus the try to figure out what's bad, allow everything to run and figure out what's bad. Our paradigm is more, we think everything's bad. We only allow what we know is good to run, right? So the agent's lightweight, uses minimal resources on the device because it only it denies everything by default. Doesn't have a whole lot of heuristics to run and things like that. The deployment is very flexible. It runs in cloud environments, can run on multiple different operating systems, can run in a hybrid environment, an on-prem environment, mix of on-prem and cloud, whatever you have, it's pretty flexible to be able to be installed. And it solves some of the traditional Allowlisting pain points that other solutions have had, mostly on the implementation side, the management of verified software, and the governance of local exceptions, because everybody's going to have some kind of custom software that they're going to need to run in their environment. Most people do. And so you need to be able to manage that kind of local exception thing. And we do a really good job of that. So part of the agenda for today is going to be us showing how application Allowlisting puts the IT control strictly in allowing authorized processes on the network or within the organization. We're going to show how Blueshift Protect's global allow-list eliminates the stress of traditional application whitelisting of being able to classify what's good and what's not. We'll show how we also have a global list for scripts, something a little bit, there's a lot of what they call fileless malware, which is, the truth be told, it's not really fileless. There's always scripts behind it, but not the traditional exe-based malware, things that are driven more script-based, PowerShell, those sorts of things, and how a lot of companies use PowerShell for legitimate purposes. So how we can use that Allowlisting for protecting those type of things as well. And lastly, how we handle what I just said kind of previously, that local software. So some people may have custom software. A lot of in financial institutions and things like that, they have software that's not common to most things that aren't on a global allow list. So how we can manage that local allow list to allow people to run that custom software that they may have in their environment. So what is application Allowlisting and what does it do? Well, if you think about it, it's one of those things that instead of trying to figure out what files are and executables are bad by either hashes or by heuristics or by artificial intelligence or whatever the case, whatever kind of methodology you're using to try to determine if a file is bad and then not allowing it to run, it's a much better model to just assume that everything is bad and only what you know is good allowed to run. And that's what this does. So we have a global list that we'll talk about of known good applications. There's a lot of them in there. And so we allow those to run. We can keep local list of things that we know are good, allow those to run, and then everything else is not allowed to run in the environment. So we don't care about what new variant or new strain of malware is out there, what new variant of ransomware is out there, what the latest and greatest initial exploitation viruses are out there, things like that. They just do not allow them to run. They're not on any of our whitelists, so they're just not allowed to run by default. So it's a little bit better paradigm when trying to defend against viruses and ransomware and things like that. So we don't know what the file is. It's instantly marked as unknown, and then there are ways we get alerts from that, and then be able to manage that if that file happens to be good, to allow that to run in the environment and whitelist that either for one single system or for the whole organization. So the nice thing about doing it that way, it prevents anything from happening in the environment until someone's had a chance to take a look at it. So if you get something that's unknown, like you get a a script or a piece of malware delivered via email or however it gets there, and a user tries to run that, it's just not going to be allowed to run. We're going to see the alerts from that. We can respond to that. We can figure out how it got there, all those sorts of things, but it's not allowed to run in the environment. So you don't have to have that instant response or the cleanup. It's just not allowed to run in the environment. We can remove it, and then we move on with our day. So it's a little bit better paradigm when it comes to managing what's allowed to run in the environment. So that's an important thing when it comes to that kind of default deny protection. If you look at kind of NIST's cybersecurity framework and how they, we talk about the process of incident response or the process of alert response, this identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. The application allow listing plays very well on in those first two pieces of it, being able to identify and protect against a threat. Because, again, if you think about it, we're only allowing the things we know that are good to run in the environment. So anything else that is not allowed to run, we get an alert. We can identify that this is not allowed to run. What is it? And by default, that endpoint is already protected because it's not allowed to run in the first place. So you really, and I would even make the argument that from a detect and respond, even though it's not in here, it does play in those a little bit as well, because obviously if we're monitoring the protection piece of that, whereas you're seeing several workstations or several endpoints or multiple endpoints being denied something to run, that's an indicator of attack that can be investigated by a SOC and things like that. So on that detection piece, it could be other things you can see in there as well. But again, from the identify and protect, it just right out of the box is designed to do those functions. So here we'll have a little demonstration of a ransomware file execution and how the application allow listing does not allow that to run. So here we go. So here you can see we're going to try to run this unknown executable. We give it a click. The system blocks it, does not allow it to run. You see this is in Windows 7. And so we can try the same thing in Windows 10, same unknown executable, try to run it. The system says, nope, we don't know what this is, so we do not allow that executable to run. Let's talk about a little bit about our global allow list. This is one of the things that kind of makes it a lot easier for people to deploy our solution. When application allow listing was first kind of came on the scene, if you will, the deployment of it was rather cumbersome. You had to kind of custom build your own list. It would go on a learning mode where you would have to do this default deny or default allow and try to figure out everything you ran in your environment and then whitelist those one by one so you would have the solution. It was just an arduous task of trying to classify, especially if you're an organization of any size, all those executables and all those things in here. So to combat that, we have a global allow list, which are software that we've categorized and collected and know that it's good, whether through applications or digital certificates or things like that. So this kind of eliminates that need of the learning mode. We already know about, again, over 22 billion approved applications that are already on our list. Those are allowed to run. We know they're good. We do check those based on their certificates and other things. So you're not having to go through and classify things that we already know about. Your Microsoft applications, your Adobe applications, your Autodesk and things like that. The applications that are widely used within business are already pre-curated on our global allow list. So that takes that learning mode away, right? We don't have to have that learning mode. That of trying to learn all those good executables. We already know what it is. We can then move on to the things that are just exceptions. So it makes that implementation much faster and much, much less painful on both IT and the security team because we already have this large global allow list. So here I'll just kind of real quick show a demonstration of how the global application allow listing works. And so you kind of just can see real quick how that functions. So here we go. Okay, here we're going to run a Adobe Acrobat executable. So obviously, Adobe Acrobat is a signed application, so the system allows it to run, and that's done with the global whitelist. As you can see, this is done in Windows 7, so it obviously allowed it to run because it's a signed global executable. Same thing in Windows 10. We're going to try to run Acrobat again, and you can see no delay, no nothing. The system allows it to run because it is a known good executable in our global whitelist. So, and we're back. So now we'll talk about the local allow list. So this is for that custom software that I talked about. So software that we don't have in our global allow list, then obviously it's going to be blocked. But this may be software that your organization needs to run. It may be custom software that you have, maybe specialized software. Again, if you're into financial or some other verticals, there's some software that gets ran in there that isn't on a global allow list. So we have local allow lists. So when we do our implementations, we will try to find these custom pieces of software, or if we see things that get denied, we can then add them to this local allow list if they're legitimate. So that is very, very simple. It's easy to do. It can be allowed just for that specific endpoint that was trying to run on. It can be allowed for the whole organization. It can be allowed for a group of endpoints. It's very customizable about how you allow that custom piece of software to run. So again, allows us to have that, again, that custom software run in an organization that wouldn't be on a normal allow list. So we can show an example of that here too. So let's take a look at how the local allow list edition works. All right, well, this is going to show you how to add things to the local whitelist using the console. So you can see here we have some notifications of some things that were tried to run, and there's two things here. So you can see that these are things that we do want to run and add to our whitelist. So you can just go in here and click and say, do you want to add it to this company, or this account, this workstation, this group, and select what you want to add to that local whitelist. So that will then allow those applications to run that aren't part of our global whitelist. All right, and we're back. And so the last thing we'll kind of talk about here is the scripting allow list. So, scripts, things like PowerShell and things like that, they're used in that initial exploitation phase of a cyber intrusion all the time. So, but IT admins need things like PowerShell to be able to automate and effectively do their jobs. So we do have a scripting allow list too. So if you're utilizing things like PowerShell and you have scripts that you need to run on machines for maintenance purposes or for just everyday IT management, we can do that, right? So we can allow those type of global scripting allow lists in the environment where you can still have those scripts running, but the scripts that may come from an adversary to do something bad will still not be allowed to run. So they call these kind of fileless, like I said in the beginning, fileless malware, even though there's scripts involved. And there are still files involved. It's what they call it. They call it fileless malware. So we're able to help protect against those threats as well, because we're not going to let unknown scripts in the organization run. So it's kind of a total allow listing across all paradigms there. So here we can show an example of the ransomware script detection as well. So let's take a look at that. All right, so here we're going to run some scripts. This is a PowerShell script in Windows 7. We're going to try to run it. You can see the application Allowlisting does not allow that to run. It's a dangerous script. Same thing with command, batch files. It's trying to run a batch file here in Windows 7. It does not allow it to run because it shows it's a dangerous file. Same thing in Windows 10. Run the same type of PowerShell script. Try to run that in PowerShell. It says, nope, we're not going to let you run that because that is a dangerous script. And the same thing with a batch file written for Windows 10. So again, not going to allow that file to run through command.exe with a batch file. Again, helps with that fileless malware and script-based attacks. And we're back. So other thing we can do is we have digital certificate allow list, right? So if you have a digital certificate for your software, we can include that in anything that you've signed or that you're going to allow to run. And then any applications that sign with that certificate obviously is allowed to run in the environment too. So it kind of streamlines that authorization management. If you have a lot of software that you're creating yourself or things that you sign yourself, you can sign those applications with your certificate, and then our solution will know about that and then allow those to run in the environment as well. So lots of different ways to be able to manage and streamline that authorization of getting software to run in the environment that is which is allowed, which needs to run in the environment and is allowed. We give you a lot of different options for being able to do that. So we can show you an example of that too here. So let's just kind of take a look real quick on the good signed file execution. Okay, here we're going to show you how the demo of a good signed executable. We're going to use Acrobat here in Windows 10. So you can see Acrobat's going to fire off. No problems. Obviously, it's signed, and we know that through our signed whitelist. So we can do this Windows 11 too, so it works in both. So when we see it in Windows 11, same thing. It's a signed executable that we do allow to run. So you can go in the console, and now we can see, hey, look, here's Adobe. It's digitally signed. There was 2 devices that tried to run it. We had 2 total executions. We can click on the details to see, who signed that executable, so who the code signing certificate is generated by. And we can see what types of system it was ran on, when it was ran on, all that kind of stuff. And there's not any local or block list that shows that it's on there as well. So pretty simple process as well. So in summary, Blueshift Protect delivers superior application allow listing security, but maintains that ease of use. We do that by combining both the global and local allow list to make the platform both performant and easy to manage. Creation of local allow lists is very, very simple, as you saw. And the application allow listing is streamlined for management of multiple customers if you need that sort of thing. So all in all, it's a very good solution for companies of just about any size. So if you have any questions, feel free to check us out online. Our website is www.blueshiftcyber.com, and we thank you for watching. Have a good one.